Hello everyone, welcome to episode 36 of Show Fever. Today we'll be going over the Greed Island arc of Hunter x Hunter. Now this one's going to be more kind of a review because honestly, I was not a big fan of the Greed Island arc. Like honestly, it felt like it could have been so much shorter. Now, I guess I'll just kind of go over the story briefly. So the Greed Island arc follows as Hilo and Gon finally get to Greed Island, which they've been trying to reach so they can get in touch with Jean, who is Gon's dad. And so, as we saw in the Phantom Troop part, they were trying to gain money. So at the beginning, they go to this auction, but they actually don't end up winning the game. However, they come in contact with this old man who did end up winning the game, and he allows them to go in. Eventually, they go into Greed Island, and that's where everything starts. Now, Greed Island is a video game in which, well, a video game, because as we learn later on, it's actually a physical island that people are just transported to under the presumption that it's a video game, because they get through it via going through a game console. But it's actually a real island, and it's just east of York New City. And so, with this, we learned that Greed Island is a game where you have a binder and you can you get cards. And the cards are acquired from turning certain items into cards. Once you find those items, you can turn them into cards. Or you can turn them back into the item a select amount of times. And those said items that you have like spell cards and stuff, just an array of everything. You get like items off of it and all that good stuff. And so that's just really a baseline thing. You can only use the big thing is you can only use them a select amount of times, and you can only transform them into their physical form a select amount of times. So that's just really how it starts off. And eventually we see as Gon and Killua come in contact with this group who are trying to escape by collecting and putting all their efforts together so they can collect all the cards. Now, as it progresses along, Gon and Killua kind of go off on their own, and then we see that a member of this group actually is a man who has been killing a lot of noobs on noobs. They call them newbies, new players, whatever. And he'll be killing a lot of them since they're easy to get off, and he just wants to steal their cards. So he ends up killing quite a few of the members of the original group, and then goes off with his own little trio, and they start trying to collect more and more cards. And during this time, Gon and Killua end up running into a character by the name of Biscuit, or Biscuit Kruger. And they just call her Bisky, so I just call her Bisky throughout the rest of this. And Bisky ends up taking them under her wing and training them. And then there's one point, which was honestly my favorite part of the entire arc, where they're under training and they find this like serial killer whose name is Ginolt. And Ginolt is Ginolt. Ginolt is just kind of talking, like thinking stuff through as he goes along, and she's having a fight to the death essentially. And he just thinks about into his past, about how he was in poverty, and he saw the disgusting nature of decadence and the upper echelon of life. And it was just really interesting backstory. I really enjoyed Ginolt, even though he was only there for like 2 episodes. It was really enjoyable, and I really liked that backstory. That was honestly the high of Greed Island for me. But yeah, after that, we see as he eventually surrenders to them, but they don't end up killing him, and everything's good. He doesn't end up dying, and he goes to live the straight life. Now, then after that, we just see more of the bomber stuff. That's what the dude who kills the noobs is called, and his group, the bombers. And the bombers are just going about and now hunting down Gon and Killua, and they're just really just going about doing their thing. As it moves along, Gon and Killua eventually end up learning a new nin ability by the name of Kong. It allows you to focus certain parts of your nin in certain percentages to like parts of base. So you get like 100% Kong in your fist, and it's super powerful. And so we end up seeing Gon actually learning a new ability, which is his rock, paper, scissors attack, or his John Kim Po attack. And through this, he just builds up like a lot of aura in his fist, and he just throws hands. And he can also do the scissors attack, which is more of a jab. And the paper is probably just a block, because I know they discussed how martial artists stopped fighting kept practicing martial arts through rock, paper, scissors since they were banned, with the actual practice of martial arts were banned in the Hunter world. So, yeah. So, we see that, and then eventually it just kind of progresses along slowly. We end up seeing as one of the members of the newer people group, he ends up saving himself from the bombs by creating this little amalgamation that can absorb cursed techniques. And on this island as well, we have Hisoka, and eventually Gon and Killua end up finding an area where these people are like, okay, we'll give you certain cards if you can beat us in these matches. And there are a bunch of pirates. And one of the pirates actually happens to be Razor. And Razor is a creator of the game alongside Jean. And also the Phantom Troop is on the island, but they don't really play much of a role. Just Hisoka being there's really the big thing. Because eventually they end up going and attempting to fight the pirates at first, but this doesn't actually end up working. So they have to go around and recruit some other people for a new team. And they end up recruiting Hisoka, and they pull up on Hisoka when he's booty-eyed naked showering. And so that was a little peculiar. But then we move along and we see as they eventually go for this challenge, and the Razor proposes he's got to have 8 points to win via winning these random athletic matches. So he proposed that they play a dodgeball game worth 8 points. And eventually we just see this dodgeball game. It was honestly really interesting. It was probably the best action part of this season, and well, not this season, this arc in like totality, because it was just really interesting, and it was cool, especially towards the end, to see how people like Gon, Killua, and Hisoka implemented Nin to like win the game. It was really interesting. But then we progress on past that, and eventually we get toward the climax where Bomber and his goons are preparing to fight Bisky, Gon, and Killua. And at first we see Killua's fight, but we see Bisky's fight first. And Bisky actually reveals that she is a big, muscular woman, but she hides her frame because she hates the look of it. And we see her end up beating the goon. Then the henchman, I guess. I'll say henchman instead. But then we see Killua beat up the henchman that came after them, and then Gon and the Bomber are left. I can't remember what his exact name is. But him and the Bomber end up fighting finally, and Gon actually ends up getting beat up pretty bad. Like, he ends up losing a hand due to the Bomber, and then eventually, though, he pulls out his like max powered Yonkin bow and obliterates the Bomber, and he is ultimately beat. And yeah, then after that, they just kind of leave the game, and then we go into the Chimera Ant arc, which I've watched 8 episodes of Chimera Ant arc so far, and I love it. It's so much better than Greed Island. But, like, okay, so I guess I'll really just go into what I thought about Greed Island. Just Greed Island was slow, in my opinion. Like, it seemed way much, like, far longer than it needed to be. Because, like, all of that could have been condensed. I actually condensed down to, like, 5 minutes. That could have been condensed down to, like, 10, 12 episodes. There was no need for it to be the, like, 16 or so that it was. It was really, like, drawn out. But, and like the dodgeball, that could have been cut down a lot too, because there's a lot of episodes where it's kind of the same thing happening. So it was just kind of a bad pacing. So I bet if like I would have read the manga, it'd probably been better. But, yeah, and just like with that, we just, nothing really interesting, like nothing really pivotal to the story happened. Like, yes, we ended up getting to see an old friend of Gene. We got to learn that, Greed Island was actually in there. We got a new Nin ability, and it was just still though, and we got to learn with the dude who ended up creating the little cursed, not cursed, but a Nin absorbing technique thing, little amalgamation thing. He actually is a individual now going to allow Crollo to use Nin again, because what he is figured out is he's going to exercise the curse technique that Kurapika put on him. So that's an ulterior motive that will probably have more significance later on in the story, but it's just nothing big really came of it. It was just him saying that he's going to go do it now since he has this. And yeah, like I said, it just wasn't really formative. There didn't seem like much important happened. Like, I compared it, I was talking with my girlfriend, I really compared it to the Foxy Pirate arc in One Piece, which is my least favorite arc, because it was goofy contests that weren't really needed, and like the overall villain wasn't really compelling. Like I said, the most compelling character in the entire arc was Gnault, who we only had there for like 2 chapters. Not 2 chapters, but 2 episodes. So yeah, I just feel like it was kind of a fart in the wind, if that's probably the most apt way to describe it, because it just didn't feel significant. Like, I know that all arcs have to feel like high stakes and all that. I appreciate some arcs that are high stakes and stuff. Like, I mean, but just, yeah, it just seemed very slow and not significant enough, because like we see this has been the goal of Gon and Killua for technically 2 arcs now. Well, not 2 arcs, but like after the Hunter exams, that's been their goal for almost 50 episodes. And it just see them kind of have such an underwhelming return on investment. It does kind of suck. And especially not seeing Gon and Killua actually end up purchasing the game. Like, instead they had to use someone else's, which did suck. So, I mean, it kind of makes their time during the Phantom Troop arc seem a little wasted, since they did raise a lot of money. It just didn't end up being frugal. Or not frugal, but fruitful in any way. But yeah, that's really all I really have to say about the Greed Island arc of Hunter x Hunter, and that's really all I have for episode 36 of Show Review. So thank you very much for watching.